and you think about the brothers' vocation within your community. As you know, the De La Salle Christian brothers are only brothers, whereas it's a mixed community for the Marianists and for the Precious Blood community. And you think about the brothers' vocation, and you think about strategies. What could you share with us about how your congregation promotes vocations to religious brotherhood? And any of you can begin.
I think as we look at the shifting realities, dynamics, sociologically, religiously, spiritually, I think where young people are, it's how do we communicate, how do we share who we are? You know, putting more emphasis on the being than the doing. And I think how do we witness to that? How do we create the spaces where we share brotherhood?
That has this headline, one vocation, a variety of ministries. And there are like 8 different blocks of photos of brothers doing different things. One, of course, would be one of our ordained members celebrating the Eucharist. One is working in plumbing. One is in the classroom with teaching the students. And there's this whole piece. And that idea of we are all brothers, despite the fact that we have ordained members, comes from our history of our congregation. Our founder wanted to create a group of male religious that focused on this idea of a discipleship of equals. And we call it mixed composition. And with brothers and priests, no one is above the other in a hierarchy. In fact, in our own constitutions, throughout history, if I remember from trying to teach this to our novices, it was somewhere in approving our constitutions in the 1860s where Rome wrote back to our general chapter saying, we don't know if this is going to work where you have brothers being a superior over some of the priests. So in back and forth, we got it approved in canon law, and some of us say that we are an asterisk in canon law because we are a congregation that does include ordained members, but a brother can be a provincial, a major superior, a brother can be a novice director, and a brother can be a local superior. In fact, when we appoint a team of formation directors for the novitiate, it's explicitly written in our constitutions that if the novice master is a lay religious, his assistant is a priest. If the priest is the master, then the assistant will be the brother. And this can be a moment of educating and surprising a number of people. For instance, whenever I would be in other congregation meetings or even with church meetings, when I was the novice director and Father Tim Eden, a former provincial, was my assistant, Father Tim would introduce himself as, "Hi, I'm Father Tim. I'm Brother Dennis's assistant." That kind of opens up a little bit of eyes. So I'd say that it's really a way that it's part of our DNA. And when we do vocation promotions, that's one of the unique things about our congregation. And what we find is when members come to us and they don't get it, they're typically the ones that never really had a Marianist vocation in the first place. And unfortunately, that does happen in some countries where members would come to us, enter formation, and up until final vows, after 3 years of initial formation and 5 years of temporary profession, when they don't get approved for the question of priesthood, because for us, we believe that calling forth ordained members is from the brothers and will serve the congregation.
In your communities, how are brothers formed? We know the path typically for ordination. That's pretty well defined by the church. But when you think about your communities, how do you form young brothers to be brothers? Like what might be some essential components? And for Juan, maybe you might think about what might be like an ideal program if you could design one for your community for brothers. who would like to? Sure.
Since I already started talking about formation, one thing that helped me become a brother, something that the U.S. province incorporated in the brother formation program was having a brother mentor. So the priest candidates, the formator was a priest. And I also had a brother who was my mentor. So that was very helpful for me, having someone that I can talk to, like how to navigate life in the community as a brother with all this history I mentioned, and also life as a brother. He was he's an older brother, musician, so math teacher, so we connected also because of the math, So that for me was very important, and I hope, or I wish, that could be included maybe in all the formation programs around the world. So that's something that I'm kind of trying to promote. And I like the fact of the flexibility that my community offers, in terms of basically you have to design your own formation program. So I like that. Work for me.
We do have one vocation, a variety of ministries, and being ordained is equivalent to another ministry, not less or more important. In our formation program, as I mentioned, the formation staff at the novitiate level is always equal, a priest and a brother in one or the other roles. When we read from our rule of life, we talk about the history of this idea of a discipleship of equals, and the formation is equal. There's no separation of members. In fact, the question of priesthood isn't even asked until approaching a request for final vows. So 1 year of pre-novitiate, 2 years of novitiate, first vows. In the temperate professed time, it's getting some experience. If a brother needs education or ministry experience or additional formation, that's given. When the candidate is ready to request final vows, a second consultation is added to the final vow request, which include approving for final vows from the entire membership, and a second consultation that includes category requesting priesthood. When both are approved, then the final professed candidate takes final vows and may begin some language classes and some philosophy classes. Our international seminary is at my house, which is where our curia general is also located.
The area of formation is a great concern for us today in terms of ensuring quality formation, formation that has depth in terms of its focus and our consecration. And so I think, if we look at our formation programs, are they holistic enough? Are they part of a process, an ongoing process, or do we see them as we check the box? We got the postulacy done, we got the novitiate done, we got the initial formation done. So I think it's really ensuring that we're taking the time to review, to assess our formation programs. And we have this challenge, I think it speaks to our challenge. Our current administration established a commission for consecrated life to focus on the life of the brothers across our global institutes. It really is a call for us as congregations to see and to analyze and to assess the quality of our formation and what kind of brothers are we forming for religious life, for consecrated life, not simply for ministry or mission. I think this is a critical dimension of this.
What languages typically do they have to learn or to know? Is it? Yep.
Well, the state is Spanish is kind of encouraged for people to learn. They're in Italy because they're mission in Africa, so it depends a little bit on the program. Other regions, unfortunately, don't have a lot of vocations. So Germany, we don't have vocation. And we have a mixed province, the Liberian province, that they encourage to learn Portuguese and Spanish. And also Latin America, they encourage to learn Portuguese and Spanish because they go with Brazil. So those are
The main languages, yeah.
It's similar for us, I think it depends on, we have 7 novitiates in the Institute. So in Africa, French and English, in Latin America, Spanish. Though we do encourage, it's in our rule that the brothers should have a second language, and how well we do that is a question mark. In Asia, English. Vietnam, we have a division in Vietnam, which that's a challenge for us because, of course, they know Vietnamese, some French, but then it limits sometimes the ability to wear, and we have a good number of vocations in Vietnam, so it's been a challenge for us, a good positive challenge to bring brothers out of Vietnam into other parts of the Institute, either for formation or academic preparation, so they acquire a second language. And then we have, in Europe, Spanish would be the language.
For the Marianists, we have 5 novitiates throughout the world. In the United States, English, but we also have candidates from Korea and Mexico. They're part of our regions. They spend a year in San Antonio learning English.
Only a shadow of your love for me.